Hello, everybody. Wanted to come back on here and do another video, and this time it was going to be about Moneypenny. Now, one of the reasons why I started to focus a little bit here on Moneypenny was I've been watching a reaction channel. Actually, I've watched several reaction channels, like movie reaction channels on YouTube, where they react to Bond movies. It's like the first time they've watched a Bond movie. Now, some of them enjoyed one, so that maybe they watched one of Daniel Craig's, and then they're like, you know what? I think I want to watch the whole series. So um, there was one Roly Poly reaction. He went through and he did a whole Bond. He did every Bond movie. I think it was like every third or fourth movie he would do a Bond movie and worked his way through the whole series of Bond movies. So it was fun to watch his reactions. And then one I've been watching lately has been Jen Murray. And Jen Murray, she's got what, 40, almost 44,000 subscribers, 212 videos. And she just posted today. She's on Die Another Day. That's her latest reaction. So she's worked her way through quite a few of the Bond movies. And I must say, she's got pretty good taste, because one of her favorites so far has actually been Timothy Dalton. So that was cool to watch. Anyway, she loves Moneypenny. And it was fun to watch her. Every time Moneypenny would come on, she's like, Moneypenny. And she was really, excited to see Moneypenny. Q, she was always excited to see Q each time. But she really likes Moneypenny. And I made a comment on one of her videos about how in the art, in one of my videos, I talked about all the art that was used in the Bond movies, and how Moneypenny always had flowers around her desk, because she was kind of the flower of the office. So, and that was very obvious. Well, I was listening today to Moonraker. I'm making my way through the audiobooks, Ian Fleming's audiobooks, and I was beginning Moonraker number 3 today. And I've got to tell you, I think I understand Moneypenny, because did you know Bond had his own secretary? I didn't know that until we got into this book. So this is the third book, Moonraker. So it's on page. I mean, it's only a few pages in. So Bond, he goes into his office. He has his own secretary. So it starts. It says the door opened, and he had his daily moment of pleasure at having a beautiful secretary. "Morning, Lil," he said. The careful warmth of her smile of welcome dropped about 10 degrees. "Give me that coat," she said. "It stinks of cordite. And don't call me Lil. You know I hate it." Bonds took off his coat and handed it to her. So they have a little bit of an interaction, and but then Bond has an understanding about her. And then the book describes his secretary, Lil, a little bit. And in describing Lil, I think we learn all about Moneypenny. Because, hear me out. Listen to this. Okay. She was tall and dark, with a reserved, unbroken beauty, to which the war and 5 years in the service had lent a touch of sternness. Unless she married soon, Bond thought, for the 100th time, or had a lover, her cool air of authority might easily become spinsterish, and she would join the army of women who had married a career. Bond had told her as much often, and he and the 2 other members of the 00 section had at various times made determined assaults at her virtue. She had handled them all with the same cool motherliness which, to salve their egos, they privately defined as frigidity. And the day after, she treated them with small attentions and kindness to show that it was really her fault and that she forgave them. So she has this motherly way of dealing with the 00s as they're hitting on her. So can you imagine 007, he's not the only double O. And imagine if all the other double O's were hitting on Moneypenny, flirting with Moneypenny the way 007 does. And she just kind of, she does her thing with all of them the same way she treats 007. Let's get to know her a little bit more as we discover more about Lil, Bond's secretary, because this describes the position of a secretary in the office, with their time in the office. Okay, so the book describes more about Lil. What they didn't know was that she worried herself almost to death when they were in danger, and that she loved them equally, but that she had no intention of becoming emotionally involved with any man who might be dead next week. And it was true that an appointment in the Secret Service was a form of peonage. If you were a woman, there wasn't much of you left for other relationships. It was easier for the men. They had an excuse for fragmentary affairs. For them, marriage and children and a home were out of the question if they were to be of any use in the field, as it was cozily termed. But for the women, an affair outside the service automatically made you a security risk. And in the last analysis, you had a choice of resignation from the service in a normal life or of perpetual concubinage to your king and country. Leolia, Leolia, that's why he must call her Lil. Her name's Loelia, knew that she had almost reached the time for decision, and all her instincts told her to get out. But every day, the drama and romance of her Cavell Nightingale world locked her more securely into the company of the other girls at headquarters, and every day it seemed more difficult to betray by resignation the father figure which the service had become. Meanwhile, she was one of the most envied girls in the building, and a member of the small company of principal secretaries who had access to the innermost secrets of the service, the pearls and twin set, as they were called, behind their backs by the other girls, with ironical reference to their supposedly country and Kensington backgrounds. And so far as the personal branch was concerned, her destiny in 20 years' time would be that single golden line right at the end of New Year's honors list, among the medals for officials of the Fishery Board, of the Post Office, of the Women's Institute, towards the bottom of the OBE's Miss Loelia, Principal Secretary in the Ministry of Defense. She turned away from the window. She was dressed in a sugar pink and white striped shirt and plain dark blue skirt. Bond smiled into her gray eyes. "I only call you Lil on Mondays," he said. So we get to learn about what the life of the secretaries is like in the service there. So she cares equally about all the double O's, like a motherly figure. She loves them all equally, and she worries about them when they're in danger. And because they could be dead at any moment, she can't let herself get emotionally involved with any of them. Doesn't that sound like Moneypenny? And the thing is, if you get married, you're seen as a security risk and you have to leave the service. So you get to a certain point in your life where you have to decide, as a secretary who was working there, you have to make that decision. Do I continue to work here and support my boys that I care for deeply? Or do I marry and have my own normal, happy life? And so Moneypenny, it's obvious she made that choice. She married her job. She married the service, and she cared for her boys, the double O's, and Bond. She cared deeply for Bond, and probably, was always hinting at marriage with him, because if they did get married, that probably meant that Bond would also he'd probably have to leave the service too. So that could have been a win situation for her if Bond would commit. Well, then they could both go off and have a normal life. But um, she must have cared deeply for all the double O's, um, to give up a normal life outside of the service to stay there her whole career. And we saw her all through those years, all in those movies where Moneypenny um, cared for those that she had dealings with in the office. So, Jen, if you get to see this, it's very obvious. Moneypenny, she was the flower of the office. She was the bright part of their day when the double O's would go in there to see M. Maybe each of them had their own secretary. I don't know. Bond had his in the book anyway, here in Moonraker. But Moneypenny made a great sacrifice because she loved her guys and she took care of her double O's. I don't know. That kind of that kind of seems very touching, doesn't it? About Moneypenny. Um, what a gal, right? I mean, she was really, really something. So Moneypenny, cheers. You were the best. All right, everyone. We'll talk to you in the next video. Bye.